This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Start Spreading the News Yankee podcast. Paul Semendinger along with Dr. E.J. Fagan. In just a moment, we are on so many different outlets. We're on YouTube. We are on Roku. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We're all over the place. We're also then placed, of course, on the Start Spreading the News Yankee site. But there has been some question about how to access the programs of the Northeast Streaming Sports Network on Roku. So I have two very short videos to show you. Here comes the first one. This will tell you how to get Roku if you do not already know.
After adding the Roku channel national. To get the National Streaming Sports channel on your Roku TV, channel search National Streaming Sports. There's the channel search in Roku. There's our logo right on the right, NESSP. Tap on the logo and it will add to your TV, the channel to your TV. On your laptop, tablet, and mobile phone, download the free Roku app and channel search just like above. If you don't have Roku TV, you have to order a Roku device from the Roku store, hook it up to your smart TV, and bang, you have Roku TV. Again, channel search, National Streaming Sports, click on our NESSP logo, and add the channel. After adding the Roku channel, National Streaming Sports, this is our Roku site. You can click on the live stream to see what show is playing, or go to the VOD category, weekly schedule, click on the day, and it will give you all the shows scheduled for that day.
All righty. Hope those were helpful to all of you. And without any further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the wonderful, the brilliant, the terrific, and the biggest Yankee fan I know, Dr. E.J. Fagan. Dr. E.J., how are you tonight?
Doing wonderful, Dr. Semendinger.
How's the book doing?
Pretty good. The book, The Thinkers, boom. The rise of partisan think tanks and the polarization of American politics. I remember that has one review on Goodreads, but that review is written by Jason Furman, former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors under Barack Obama. So pretty good. And by the way, we have a review coming at some point soon from a friend of the show, Tevi former chair of the Domestic Policy Council under George W. Bush. I like quality over quantity. Book seems to be doing well. I highly encourage people to pick it up. It's been getting a pretty good response.
That's awesome. So talking about getting a pretty good response, the Yankees made a trade for Jazz Chisholm. He's had a couple of pretty good games so far. He homered today. So you wrote a piece on your Substack about Jazz Chisholm. You weren't exactly super high on the trade. How do you feel about it right now? Have you reconsidered? And what do you think?
I think I've come around a little bit. We're going to talk about him playing third base, but my premise was basically that he was a second baseman or center fielder. That's where he played shortstop when he first came up as well, but he wasn't very good there. Was a really good second baseman. Was a really good center fielder. He's fast. He's just a good defender. He's playing third tonight. And I'll be honest, when the Yankees said, hey, maybe he could play third, I thought that was a bluff. I thought they said, well, yeah, he's going to play third because we don't want to increase the price of whatever third baseman we're negotiating for. He's looked pretty good third tonight. If he can play third, I think it's a good trade. I don't know, the more I just see the guy being interviewed, home run Volpe. There we go.
Wow, all what does that make the score? That the Yankees
are
11 to 4. Yeah, all right,
man,
good.
dude, Volpe, it's looking good lately.
I'm going to ask you that question in a minute. Have the Yankees turn the corner? But first,
yeah, we should talk about that. But look, I don't think Jazz Chisholm. I still think the Yankees are trying to trade for a third baseman right now. Some third basemen have been traded. We can talk about those missed opportunities, but if he's a good third baseman, when I mean good, I mean like fine, good enough. I think I'm kind of a fan of the trade. If he's not, I think the thing that you need to make the trade make sense is another trade. And every big trade beat writer that I've seen, Ken Rosenthal, Jack Curry, a few others, they've said there's another shoe coming, another shoe to drop for the Yankees. So the Yankees aren't done. And I sure get the vibe from Gleyber Torres that he feels like he's about to be traded. So I think he's still your second baseman, in which case I think it's a fine trade. I think he's a little overrated. He's been an average-ish hitter for most of his career. There's some reason to believe that he might be better, outside of Miami, both for ballpark reasons and for coaching culture reasons. I didn't know much about him until him as a person until he was traded. And so I watched his post-game interview yesterday and a few others. I like him. I like the dude. He got a call from the prime minister of the Bahamas after he was traded to the Yankees, because apparently the Yankees are like the national team of the Bahamas. That's pretty cool. That's a first, I think. So, the more I experience Jazz Chisholm, the more I like him. Temper your expectations. He has at times been a very talented player, but I think the baseball card suggests he's an average hitter. A lot of power. Ooh. Oh, the Yankees just scored another one. So I think it's a good trade. I just don't think it's a good trade. I think it's a bad move for this year if they don't do anything else.
All right. So I'm in agreement with you on all. My son, Ethan, who writes for Start Spreading the News, of course, has been high on Jazz Chisholm for a couple of weeks now. He wrote an article a couple of weeks ago that said the Yankees should get him. I've been less enthusiastic about Jazz Chisholm. You had me more in the Jonathan India camp. If that's the only move the Yankees make, yeah, I agree. It doesn't move the needle all that much, and I think the Yankees need to do more. But if it's part of something else and it's part of moving Gleyber Torres and the Yankees are doing things to make everything better, then I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with, and I've had some debates with some of the readers on Start Spreading the News today, is the idea of him becoming a third baseman. So let me just take a step back. I think you and I might disagree on this. Maybe we'll agree. We haven't talked about it, obviously. He could be a very good third baseman. He's an athlete. These are all athletes. There's no reason he can't be a good third baseman, except that he's never been a third baseman. And sometimes people have this, what they do is they just say, well, he's an athlete. He played shortstop, so he can play third base. Well, no, shortstop is different than third. He didn't really play that much shortstop anyway. His other infield position was second base. Second base and third base are two totally different positions. And the idea that you can play third is different than, yes, he can, but can he play at a major league level quality? So he's at least an average third baseman. And I think if you're in the middle of a pennant race, you probably want somebody for the most part who's not just average. And I'm not a big fan of learning a position on the fly in the middle of a pennant race as August is looming. So those are my feelings. He might be great at third, but this isn't the time to try, and it reeks of desperation to me.
I think it's desperation. I think that's very clear. Yeah. It wouldn't shock me if he was a decent enough third baseman. He's an athlete. He seems pretty confident out there. I think the contrast with Torres was fascinating, where when Torres was asked, would you play third base? He apparently both privately told Boone and then told the media, no, I'm a second baseman. Whereas Chisholm said, I'll do whatever it takes to help the team. I'm an athlete. I can do it. That's a very different attitude, and I like that. I think the first question is he better than TJ LeMahieu? Total package, offense, defense. I think the answer is yes.
Easy. Well, DJ's a disaster.
So we've upgraded. We've upgraded a really not great situation to maybe a good situation. Next year, I don't think he's probably a second baseman, both because I think he's a better defender there. but also because you could probably go out and get a different third baseman. And so the question is, one is this the last move? I don't think it's the last move. They were in on Isaac Paredes. They didn't get him. Justin Turner was traded. Justin Turner is also not a major league third baseman at the moment. He has experience there. He's just bad. And so, and frankly,
I think he's a better hitter than Jazz Chisholm.
He's about the same this year. He's old.
He's going to be 40, or he is 40.
Right. But... I mean, if I look up him right now, his stats, it's he's a very average hitter. So pretty similar, not that different.
And he doesn't have speed, so we'll give that to Jazz.
And he's not around next year or the year after. I think this is a good move for future years. The question is this a good move for this year? When I wrote that blog post, I wasn't even considering him at third base. And, if he's good at third, let's keep him at third. The thing about Gleyber Torres is that, he has a history of his defensive position affecting his defense affecting his offense.
Yes.
I think it makes sense that you wouldn't move him. To me, it's the attitude that I didn't like. Torres has been really bad at second tonight. And, if he were hitting, we would look past it. He has just not had a good year there. So if Chisholm hits, I think we forget all of this. And if he hits well, I think he could be a real asset. I just think you want to temper your expectations. I don't think he should hit cleanup.
No.
I think he should hit 6, 7, something like that. And at that point, he becomes a real asset and a real upgrade. So I'm coming around to the trade a little bit. I really think another trade is coming. I wrote kind of a fantasy blog post earlier today.
Yes, you did.
Which we can talk about, where like 7 guys get traded, which is kind of fun. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but it's kind of fun. I think there's a world where the Yankees are very active in the next 24 hours, but it's 8:00 on Monday. We have 22 hours until the trade deadline. And so
9 o'clock on Monday, you're in Central Time.
They're kind of you're right. I'm sorry. You're kind of running out of hours.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure some of the crazy flip this guy, flip that guy scenarios are all that doable, unless like the Yankees close a trade in like the next hour. You need some time to kind of do the transactions, but maybe they can. Maybe they have trades in place waiting for Jack Flaherty or someone like that.
Well, let's get into some of the specifics.
Yeah.
I want to ask you if the Yankees have turned the corner. And I want to talk about something that happens to me infrequently, because I'm not driving in traffic all that often. But I don't know if this has happened to you. You're in traffic on a highway, and it's just an annoying traffic jam. It's not because of construction. It's just one of these things where everything's tied up at a weird hour.
And I commute every morning. Yes.
Yes, but it's even worse than that, because if it's your commute every morning, you expect it. Mm-hmm. It's heading to the Jersey Shore on a Wednesday in November.
Okay.
And you're sitting in bumper to bumper traffic in, I don't know, in the Oranges or whatever, which is an hour and a half away from the Jersey Shore. And there's no rhyme or reason. And you're like, all right, I know, since I live in this area, how to get around this traffic. I'm going to get off at that next exit, and I know a back way to sneak around it all. And this usually happened, obviously, before we had Waze and Google Maps and all that. So I'm really talking about stuff that happened in the less than recent past. But then the exit where you know how to get off and make the secret escape and save yourself from the traffic comes up, and at that moment, the traffic dissipates. There is no traffic. So you're like, well, why would I get off and be a pain? And then you zoom past the exit, and the traffic starts, and it's bumper to bumper again, and you're sitting for another hour, and you're like, I should have gotten off. I have that same sense. This is my worry. Have the Yankees turn the corner, or is the exit sign right there? We're zooming past it as they're beating the Phillies, and they take 2 or 3 from the Red Sox, and as soon as the trade deadline passes, we're back in bumper to bumper traffic, and they're doing terribly. Have they turned the corner, or is this just an illusion?
I think the question is what is the expectation, right? What percentage of games do you expect them to win going forward? Now, I will say they have a very easy schedule for the last couple months of the season. I think after the Phillies series, basically it turns into one of the easier schedules, like we had back in May. But that's kind of avoiding the point, right?
Well, but wait, I'm going to ask you a question about that. Keep going, but I'm going to come back to that.
So I had a little bit on the Bronx Beat podcast yesterday, and this probably isn't true anymore. But I said, okay, Dominic, can you guess what record the Orioles have had over the last 10 games? The answer was 4-6. And I said, how about the Twins? And the answer was 4-6. And how about the Red Sox? And the answer was 4-6. And how about the Yankees? The answer was 4-6. And literally every single team in the playoffs for the American League was 4-6 over their last 10. And if you look at a lot of the teams in Major League Baseball, except for the Phillies, pretty much everybody came back down to earth at the same time. It was really fascinating. The really bad teams, except for the White Sox, started winning some more games, and the really good teams stopped winning games. Pretty much everybody got mediocre for a while. Now, I think the Yankees were worse than mediocre, right? I mean, they've gotten better over the last,
but 10-23 is pretty bad.
They were 4-6 over the last 10, and worse than that over the month before that.
Correct.
I just want to put it in perspective, where if the Yankees play like a 90-win team for the rest of the season, they might win this division easily. I think the question is what of the Yankees' problems, what is ethereal, meaning what is temporary, and what's permanent? Like what needs a change to the roster, to the personnel, to whatever, in order for there to be a change. So Alex Verdugo's slumping always felt like a temporary change.
I'll agree.
I like the official Bronx Beat podcast theory from our new co-host John, that he had a child and is really tired. And since if you can trace his struggles back to almost the day that he went on parental leave. Great one. I'm getting ready for that. So we'll see. We'll see how my performance is for the few months after that. But Verdugo is 27 years old. He's a consistent major league player. He was always going to get back to the back of his baseball card. The question is it with the Yankees or not? Austin Wells was in a terrible slump, and now he's one of the best hitters in baseball. That feels pretty real. Maybe not 900 OPS for the rest of his career real, but good. One of the better hitters in baseball.
So I kind of equivocate him with Luis Gil, right? He's going to come back to earth, but if he can come back to earth and be a productive hitter, then that's exactly what you need.
Well, Luis Gil, right? He was struggling. Apparently, Luis Severino fixed his slider, which is pretty cool, and has been really good since then. Now, not as good as he was in May.
That's what I'm saying,
right?
But
when
he's hot. Luis Gil. He's not Luis Gil. May was unbelievable. Then he comes back down to earth.
Yeah, tonight he did. It was 5 1/3 innings with 3 runs. I thought that that was a little soft. I think he probably, he got a little unlucky there, and I think he was better than that 5 1/3 and 3 runs. So a lot of those guys who were slumping, I think, have exited their slumps. I also, during the worst part of that losing streak, Judge and Soto were both slumping because they both had those little nagging injuries, and that's clearly over. So I think they've solved some of their problems. They've solved the cleanup hitter problem because of Austin Wells. They've solved some of the starting pitching problems, but there's some problems that are still around. Bullpen. It's been bad, and it hasn't gotten better. Clay Holmes had one good night, one bad night. The Tonkin, Jeff Weaver, even the guys who you got some success out of have been shaky. They've not been consistently good. It's not like Tommy Kahnle gave up 5 runs a month ago and hasn't given up a run since. So you still have to solve that problem. I think the starting pitching is still a problem. Of the start, other than Hill, I'm not really confident in any of the other 4, but for different reasons. Right? Garrett Cole, I think, might still be injured. He's just not been consistent since coming back, and
I just think it's also very hard. Everybody's not everybody, but so many think, Garrett Cole's coming back. He's going to be the same pitcher he was. These are human beings.
Yep.
And if you have a problem in your arm, even if it goes away, when you're throwing, somewhere deep in the back of your mind, it must be, if I break this off too much, if I twist my elbow too much, if I put too much, whatever it is, stress on my shoulder, if I really give it everything I have, I don't know if my arm's going to hurt again. And you become a different pitcher. The only guy I can ever recall having an injury history or a potential injury history and really not letting it affect anything, seemingly, was Masahiro Tanaka, who everybody said he's going to break down tomorrow, and he never did. And he just kept pitching the way he always had.
Yeah, look, Cole's strikeout rate is down. His fastball velocity is down. I think there's good reason to believe that Cole is hurt. Or old or whatever, right? So
yeah, right. Or just not 100% back and not 100% trusting. I think it's a process. You like I had Achilles surgery a number of years ago, and you're like, all right, can I do it? How fast can I go? Well, I'm not going to push it yet. I'm running, but I'm not going to give it everything I've got yet. And that's a process, and it just doesn't come back like overnight, and it could take a year.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Look, Carlos Rodon, looking better recently. I really like the adjustments he's made since the All-Star break. We'll see, but I'm not super confident in him. I'm not super confident in Cortez at all right now. The Yankees are trying to trade him. It's a little rough. And so I think the trade rumor for Jack Flaherty makes a ton of sense because that would stabilize the rotation quite a lot. I thought they were going to trade for a couple of relievers. It turns out that everybody wants to trade for a reliever, and prices are very high, and they haven't been able to dislodge any of them. Maybe they do by the end of it. We'll see. I don't want to judge the trade deadline before it's happened. But that's a concern. I think the lineup, if they did nothing else to the lineup and Jazz Chisholm can play a third, I think I'm okay with it. I think they probably could use one more hitter. A third baseman. They trade for someone like a Matt Chapman, who I'm still shocked is not on the market.
He might be.
Well, we haven't had, I should say, I'm shocked we haven't had any rumors. Just because it makes so much sense for the Giants to trade him. They're trading other guys, and he fits the Yankees perfectly. My speculation here is they want to get the Flaherty trade done first, right? That's the trade that they're working on. We now have a pretty solid rumor that they're deep into talks with the Tigers about Flaherty, and that they have a Nestor Cortez trade lined up if they do trade Flaherty. And the reason why I think Gleyber Torres is also to go is that he and Chapman have very similar contracts. They're making the same amount of money. And I assume there's a financial constraint on the Yankees right now. I think they want to get cheaper. Chisholm gets them cheaper than Torres next year, which is nice. They can save that money and maybe put it toward Juan Soto or somebody else. And then Matt Chapman is making this year about what Soto makes. He's making 18. Soto's making, I think, 15.
You mean Gleyber?
Gleyber, I'm sorry. And so that's why I did the crazy 6 trade prediction on the blog, mostly because it was fun. But I think if you trade Torres, you get Chapman. And that's a really good trade. A couple of other names that are out there they've been connected to. Yandy Diaz would be a fun one. Good first baseman. He's a little older, but he's under control for a little bit. He's $8 million, so he's kind of cheap. So he's your Rizzo replacement next year. I could imagine them basically trading Ben Rice for him, which I think would be a fun trade. Diaz was the batting champion last year. Oh, Jazz Chisholm Jr. with another home run. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
That's right.
I wanted to, it's unbelievable. You were talking about how excited he was. I don't have Instagram. I need to get on some of these things, I guess. I really don't want to. But did you see Jazz Chisholm's Instagram?
I did not see his Instagram. Was he excited?
Yes. So there's a scene in Seinfeld when George gets his job with the Yankees and he comes into Jerry's apartment and I think he's wearing a Yankee hat backwards. And then Jerry's like, "What? Well, did you get a new job?" And he turns his hat around and he goes, "The Yankees, the New York Yankees." And that's what he put on his. Instagram.
Here we go. I mean,
if you're that excited to be a Yankee, you gotta love him, right? At least we'll give him a chance to love him and be great and be an addition. So many people were hating on him. I don't get it.
Well, it's interesting. So I think I know what it is. So there's a couple of other interesting connections with Chisholm. So he, the first that I had heard of him, the first that you had heard of him, there were two things I think.
Right. One that he's not a good guy in the clubhouse.
Well, right. But it's interesting. I think we can decode that. Number one, he was voted most overrated by the players entirely. I think because he was on the cover of MLB The Show. He's not that great. Mm-hmm. And apparently I think Derek Jeter basically got him on there. Derek Jeter is his mentor.
Yes.
And
He had an interview about that too. I don't know if you saw that. His mentor was Kobe Bryant. Yeah. And Kobe died, and he called up Jeter, and he said, "Now you are my idol, and I
Well,
need you
he
to
was
be
going
my
to
idol."
meet, he was going to meet Kobe
Yeah,
Bryant
he
the
was
day he
that
died.
day.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then Jeter basically called Jeter crying. I think he must have been 19, 18 years, pretty young at the time. And then Jeter kind of took him under his wing. And so Jeter got him on the cover of MLB of the Show. Some players resented that. I think I get that. Not really a problem for Chisholm, but he's not going to say no to that. But I get it. The other one is he had some comment about how he hadn't spent any time with any of his teammates in 2 years. And I took that, a lot of people, myself included at the time, took that as like I'm too good for my teammates thing. And I heard that quote come up after the overrated votes. I assume that those were connected. It turned out that the Marlins have some pretty harsh rookie hazing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Chisholm basically just said no. He's like, I'm not doing that. And I sympathize with that. Like, yeah, like something, you're right. That stuff is stupid. I don't think the Yankees do any of that anymore.
Thank God.
They don't even do, I think, the like rookies dress up on the road thing anymore.
Thank
I think
God.
it seems like they're a very welcoming clubhouse. Aaron Judge was apparently right there to welcome him the second he got there. I watch his interviews and he does not seem like a bad teammate. He just seems like a smart, good dude, like level-headed, like articulate, intelligent as hell. Like I've seen a lot of meathead baseball players get interviewed, and that's not Jazz Chisholm. I kind of like the guy, and well, he just hit another home run, so I maybe, I don't know. I'm excited. Okay, beyond that,
I was just going to look something up and I forgot what it was. I got distracted.
We have some other trade rumors we can talk about.
Yes, I want to go back to the other thing though that I was just going to mention. I don't like this strategy. I'm against this strategy. My strategy is always you build the best possible team. But do you believe if the Yankees go small here over the next 24 hours or so, it's not even 24 anymore, but that somehow Brian Cashman's looking at the fact that you mentioned that this easy schedule is coming up and he goes, you know what? We just got through the worst part. We played terribly, but nobody could put us away because they also played terribly. I think there's a better than zero chance that we actually play much better than 500 because we're going to be playing lousy teams. And as bad as we are, we're not that bad.
I think that stretch in May really gave a little bit of false confidence.
That's what I'm worried about. I hope that's not what they're thinking.
Well, the good news is that they have to make decisions about their final roster before that stretch. And so, they might do really well. They might do really poorly, but whatever strategy they have picked will be locked in place before we know.
Yeah, it's by 5 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Right. And so I think they're going to make decisions on that basis. I'll say, look, they just beat up on the best pitcher in baseball today, Zach Wheeler.
Now we get a lot of Philly fans on this because we're on the Philly Sports Guys Facebook, so we might get some people upset with us. Right. But the Yankees spanked the Philly. Kristen getting excited about Jazz, and he wants the Yankees to get some pitching. We might get some Philly hate though. Just be careful. We have to be careful here.
But I do think that you have to think about, okay, how can these hitters score enough runs against good pitchers? And do you have pitching to go against good lineups? And I don't think they have pitching. Hitting, I'm open to it. The lineup today was kind of fun to look at. I mean, you have Rice batting 8th, Volpe batting 9th.
I love Volpe 9th. I've been the guy who's been pushing that for 2 years now.
What I love is I think he's the 9th best hitter in the lineup, right? Like to me, that's why you bat somebody 9th. And it's a sign that they have 8 hitters who are better than Anthony Volpe. And that was not the case when he was batting leadoff. They had 3 hitters better than Anthony Volpe at best, maybe 2. So I just looking at that, it feels like things have changed pretty quickly. Now there are still some spots in the lineup that I'm concerned about. Stanton, he came back. He's over 4 tonight. You should give him some time to get his timing back, but that's not a given. I've long been a pessimist about Stanton. I was coming around right before he got injured because he had gone through a pretty legit streak. And I'd like to see that pretty quickly. I wish he had come back a week ago so the Yankees could know a little more and see if they have to get a DH. Gleyber Torres, it's weird. His numbers have been good for a while, and I still have zero confidence in them. And I don't really know how to reconcile those two facts. If I just go to his page right here, he's up to a 681 OPS. If I just go, let's go since June 1st, right? That's a good cutoff date. Since June 1st, he has a 743 OPS. Pretty good. It's not great, but if he's your 7 hitter, it's fine. And it's better than Major League average. And he's been better than that, even better than that more recently. So is Torres back? Probably. He might not be back to peak Torres form, but he's back. And I think he has an extra gear that he could find, and you wouldn't be shocked about it. Is Verdugo back?
I just think it's time. Like, Verdugo's fine. He's been a spark plug, and he's a 1-year Yankee anyway because he's a free agent after the year, and there's no way he's coming back. Keep him around, sure. But Glaber, like, we've played this game for many years now, up and down, losing focus. Like, no. My hope is he's traded by 5 p.m. tomorrow.
And I think there's a pretty good chance they will be. And I think the fact that Glaber is a better player than Alex Verdugo is why he might get traded.
Correct.
Right? Like, there are contenders who might want Glaber Torres and might think that they can coach him better than the Yankees, and maybe they can. And it's also why he might fetch something in return. One of the problems with high reliever prices is the Yankees have to give up some prospects that they don't really have to get them. I look at the package that the Angels got for Carlos Estevez, who's a solid but not incredible closer. And the Yankees couldn't match that package. They just don't have the personnel. There are 2 pitchers who are better than anything the Yankees have in their farm system right now. But Glaber Torres to a contender, that might work. Verdugo, my problem is that I'm not sure if he's back. He's got, Torres has been better for a while now. He has been great, but he's been a above average major league hitter since June 1st. You can't really split that with Verdugo. He's been good since the start of the Red Sox series, which was 4 games, right? Before that, he goes 2 for 3, 2 for 4, 3 for 6, 2 for 5, and then whatever he is tonight. And then he had 1-2 hits in the previous week, right? That's not good. And so I don't know. And so maybe they flip Verdugo and they get an outfielder, or they play Chisholm in the outfield.
They could. And Dominguez is supposedly coming back. He's playing minor league rehab.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other wild card here, right? Like, when can Jason Dominguez play? Let's see if he's playing tonight. It's Monday. He's not playing tonight. So, like, I think either of those flips works, right? Torres flipped, Verdugo flipped. I think the good news is that I don't think DJ LeMahieu is playing anymore. We'll see, but it seems to me like DJ LeMahieu is no longer a starter, and I suspect he gets released at some point, either later this season or next season. And good riddance is kind of the way I think about it. I think he's done. So if they even if they do nothing else, they have fixed their biggest problem, and hopefully some of their other problems are fixing themselves. I think that now their biggest problem is pitching. There's just been bad start after bad start, and you need 3 or 4 pitchers in the postseason.
And so you think Flaherty's coming?
So the rumor from Bob Nightingale was one, and Bob Nightingale is not the most reliable, but it was one, they're in serious talks, which for Nightingale means that they're exchanging names. And that the Yankees have a trade lined up for Nestor Cortez if they trade for Flaherty. That is interesting. That means that like the second that I saw Nestor Cortez rumors, I'm like, oh, they have to be trading for a pitcher. Otherwise, that makes no sense. And Flaherty, so this seems like a fairly reliable estimate. Now, Flaherty's under contract for 1 year. He's having a really good year. He's like, Cy Young votes level this year, and he's a guy with a lot of talent. So it's not surprising that he is. Which means he'll be cheaper than Garrett Crochet or Tarek Skubal, who have 2.5 years of team control left and are frankly better.
Oh, Angelo Riena. Good job out of Angelo. Just breaking the news here. Brewers get Frankie Montas.
I think it would have been interesting to have Frankie Montas. By the way, we have a new rumor in MLB trade rumors that the Yankees are interested again in Yandy Diaz.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, this is from Brendan Cootie, who's really good. That's a good rumor. That's a very good rumor. So look, I think that Jack Flaherty would instantly be your best starter. Maybe Cole or Hill has an argument, but Flaherty has been as good as Hill and better than Cole this season, and has a track record of at times being really good. He was down. He signed a 1-year deal to try to rebuild his value. He's having a really good season. He's going to go back on the market again. What would it cost? I don't think that much. I think it's going to be some prospects we've heard of. I don't think we're in Spencer Jones territory for Jack Flaherty. Maybe we are. Maybe there's other guys on the Tigers that you could imagine them trading. I haven't really looked at their roster too much. Maybe you get a relief pitcher who's fine, in addition to Flaherty. So it feels like a really credible rumor. The Yankees are the team that has been connected to them the most. And I like that there's all these other rumors swirling. Like Diaz, we have Blake Snell as a rumor, who's coming off an incredible month. He had a really rough start to the season because he probably should have done a month of spring training, and he didn't.
Correct.
Then he got some injuries, and then he came back and he has allowed like 2 runs in his last 4 starts and struck out 15 yesterday. So Blake Snell's looking like Blake Snell. That's good. He's getting paid a lot of money, $30 million. And the problem with Blake Snell is he has an opt-out contract. So if he chooses not to take that contract, that means he probably got injured and doesn't want to go back out on the market next year, which means the Yankees are stuck with a $32 million contract next year, which could really make it hard to sign someone else besides Juan Soto. So there's a downside to Snell. The same downside doesn't exist with Flaherty. Matt Chapman, that downside doesn't exist because he's only getting paid $18 million. And frankly, I think it's a little more reliable than Snell. He's been just good all season. So the Flaherty thing sounds more realistic to me.
How about Flaherty and Snell? I
mean, it's not my money. I think there's only a day left, and I suspect that if a player's coming from the Giants, it's Chapman. Now Chapman and Snell, that's not my money. I wouldn't be shocked.
Chapman, Snell, Yandy Diaz, and Flaherty.
Can win a World Series if you want to do that. Sure.
If the Yankees do that, now they're playing my type of Yankee baseball. Like, get them all. Yes.
I mean, that's a fun weekend to be a GM, right? They make movies about those kind of trade weeks. Look, I think it is. I think one of the interesting things about flipping Torres, Verdugo, and Nestor is they're getting paid a decent amount of money. And I wonder if that's part of the motivation. They're getting paid. I think Flaherty's getting paid 15. Torres is getting paid 14 or 15. Verdugo is getting paid 8. Cortez is getting paid 4. So it could be the case that Steinbrenner wants them to free some money up. And so Cashman's trying to find a home for all of those players and then kind of make all the trades. Diaz is getting paid 8. That's a reasonable number. I think about next year, if you get rid of Rizzo, that's 17. Replace him with Diaz, that's 8. You get rid of Torres, that's 14. Replace him with Chisholm, I think is going to be 5 next year. Now you're starting to talk about like real money coming off the roster.
And this has been the EJ plan all along.
Yeah, get cheaper so you can sign marquee free agents. I think the Yankees should have a bunch of guys getting paid $40 million and a bunch of guys getting paid like pre-arb or like lower arbitration numbers. And that allows you to get the premium talent that you expect to age well. Whereas if you have to pay $25 million or $27, whatever it is for Rodon, you end up in the worst of both worlds. You have a player who's getting paid a lot of money and you don't know if he's going to be any good because he's old and not as good as the expensive guys. I'd rather pay Corbin Burns an extra $10 million on top of Carlos Rodon because he's better. He's just a more reliable pitcher. But the only way you can do that is if you have the extra $10 million to spend. So you got to find spots to save it on the roster. And it really feels like that's what's happening. What I read into with some of these trades. I think Yandy Diaz is getting traded by tomorrow and no one else has been connected to him. He's having a down year, but he's also still an above average hitter. He's never not been an above average hitter. He's 32 years old. He's a fine enough defensive first baseman. He's not great. He's a right-handed hitter. I think he's a leadoff guy. This guy had a 400 on base in 22, 23, batting champion 23. And even his down year, he's better than most of the guys on this roster. and he's only $8 million. Like I don't think there's a downside there. I can imagine you platooning him. He's not great against left-handed pitching, or not great against right-hand. I forget. I think he's a reverse split guy. And that certainly feels credible, but you just do the numbers in your head. You're like, oh, some dominoes have to fall for them to get Yandy Diaz. Maybe I'm just going to guess is that Flaherty is the holdup. Once they trade Flaherty, they can trade Cortez, and then they can figure out their infield situation.
Well, it's going to be fun. We got the trade deadline is at 5 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern time. And then you have sort of, what do we get? Like an hour and a half, 2 hours of, well, these trades happened right before 5 and they needed to be approved by Major League Baseball. So you get a couple hours after that where other things break through that they didn't report or didn't seem to make it in time, but they did make it in time. But the process with Major League Baseball slowed down the reporting of it. So we got what? Like it's going on 10 o'clock. So that's 12 minus 3. We got about 24 minus 20 hours to go, I guess, something like that, right? Before this it is officially over with all the updates that come after 5 p.m., something like that.
Yep. And
20 hours. It could be a very exciting 20 hours.
We'll be recording a Bronx Beat podcast tomorrow night. So tune in for that. We'll discuss whatever happens or doesn't happen. I'm feeling more confident about this team, and it feels good. It's fun to watch. I know. Were you watching the Red Sox game, the Saturday game, live?
Yes, and then Ethan did the quick hit, which is what we put up right after the game. I was going to do it. I started. I was the starting pitcher yesterday in our game, and it was getting late. And yeah, I pitched us to the playoffs.
Nice job.
Yes, thank you. And I'm like, you know what? It's going to be 11 o'clock. Eth, can you do the quick hit? Because it's either he or I that does it at the end of each game. He does it most often. But I said, I got it. This is too much fun, this game. But the Yankees won, and I went right to sleep because I said I need to get a couple hours before this ball game. Yes, that was a frustrating game. It was an annoying game, but it was a great game. And the Yankees holding off and getting all those runs in the 10th inning, it was great. And they just kept battling back. And that's why you're starting to feel like maybe they did turn the corner.
Well, I think normally those games are fun. I was stressed out during that entire game because I just kept, every time they gave up a lead, I was like, okay, it's over.
Correct.
The Yankees aren't going to come back. And then they did, and they did, and they did. And they gave it up, and they did. And they gave it up, and they did. And I mean, Fenway wasn't a lot of that was just because some kind of Fenway Park annoying green monster stuff. It really feels like a vibe shift game.
Oh, Angela's telling us to trade deadline 6, not 5.
Right, there you go. Angela. So I really enjoyed the second game, the Sunday game, because then like there was a bit of a monkey off my shoulders. Like, oh, we're not going to get swept by the Red Sox. And they start scoring runs. And then today against the Phillies, they score some runs. It's
14-4 final for the Yankees today.
I mean, the Phillies are the best team in baseball, and they just beat up on them. We'll see how they do in the next 2 games, but if they take 2 of 3 in this series, and then they go into that easy part of their schedule. Again, I think it feels really, really good. And
all right, so you have advocated for Brian Cashman to be fired. So I have to. I think I think Brian Cashman overall has done a fine job for 30 years running the Yankees. He belongs in Monument Park. He might belong in the Hall of Fame for never having a sub 500 season. But I also believe that people have an expiration date and organizations need new thinking and all that kind of stuff. But let's just play the quick game. The Yankees get Jack Flaherty. They get Yandy Diaz. They win 100 games. They sweep the playoffs. They win the World Series. Do you bring Cashman back for more?
Well, yes. But look, I think, if I were a major league team, I would hire Brian Cashman to put the finishing touches on my organization, where I have a really strong base of players. I have a farm system built up, and I need someone to be the guy to pull off the trades, to be professional, right? To be that veteran guy. Dave Dombrowski is kind of that guy for other teams. What Cashman is still bad at, and this would not change, in fact, it would almost exacerbate because you're making a lot of trades, is farm system. Yes. He is bad at developing players. And I think that over the long term, that is just the death knell for your franchise. this Yankees team would be missing the playoffs, would be a disaster if Aaron Judge had not become Babe Ruth. And even with Aaron Judge becoming Babe Ruth, they are a wild card team. That's a once in a generation thing that happens, right? Aaron Judge right now is better than anybody on the 98 Yankees by a lot. Like that is not on Brian Cashman. That is a miracle. He won the lottery.
Yes. And we've talked about this, but this is super important. He has his own hitting coach. It's not like the Yankee organization is doing all this. This is a guy, as great as he is, who has his own hitting coach.
Well, and they paid him $40 million a year, right? Like they signed him as a free agent. So you don't even really get credit for drafting him a while ago. So, that is Brian Cashman is lucky that happened, because otherwise I think he's fired by now. But do you expect that to happen again? No. I don't expect the Yankees to find another Aaron Judge in my lifetime, because Aaron Judge might be the best player of my lifetime. I mean, at least over the last couple of years. So it'd be like saying like, all you got to do is just draft Mike Trout, right? Like it's not going to happen, or it's very rare. So yes, I still look at a lot of these other organizations who are loaded with young players, and I say there's no reason the Yankees couldn't be that team. There's no reason they couldn't do what the Orioles are doing. Forget the number 1 overall picks for the Orioles. You could do that with money. I mean, like the other guys filling out the roster who are better than the guys the Yankees fill out the roster with. The Yankees, they might go make a bunch of trades. I'm glad that they acquired guys like Jazz Chisholm who are in their mid-20s. But those guys are going to get old and expensive real quick. Chisholm is an R2 player, I think, or an R1 player. I mean, he's going to get $5 million that 1 year, $15 million the year after, etc. That is not you can't build out your roster with those guys. You need a bunch of guys making the minimum. They got Austin Wells. They have Anthony Volpe. They have Luis Hill. Those guys are all making the minimum, and that's good. But that is an exception for Brian Cashman. Having 3 guys at the same time. Like,
might be
for the most part,
if Dominguez comes back.
Sure, Dominguez could be a 4th. But the track record is just not there to develop.
No, I agree. That's been the problem.
And so, yeah, if I were Hal Steinbrenner, I would fire Cashman and I would hire someone who can do that. I don't know who the Orioles GM is. I don't know his name. But I suspect he likes money. Burks, who used to be the GM for the Rays, was hired by the Marlins. I suspect he likes money. He was a free agent the same year as Brian, or they could have fired Brian Cashman and signed him. And we can go down the list. There are guys out there who would like this job and would take it and have a track record of doing it. I don't think they should go out and trade for pay AJ Preller, who I think is a little nuts and doesn't really have a track record of building winning teams, because he develops a ton of prospects and also makes crazy trades. But yeah, I still think that weakness is he is weakest at the most important part of the job. The trade deadline trades are good. That's what Cashman is good at, right? I think if I had said, okay, what GM can pull off 5 trades in the next 24 hours, including a bunch of major league players going out, it's Brian Cashman. And I think he would win a lot of those trades. And he's good at getting players like Jazz Chisholm for, not too much. August Ramirez, real prospect, probably a top 100 prospect, but Jazz Chisholm's under team control for a while and just hit 2 home runs. There are things that Cashman is good at, and I think I would love to get rid of him for 5 years and then bring him back to finish the team out.
Finish it out. Yeah, that's a great point. I have an article that I'm working on. Came from a discussion I was having in the comments section of Start Spreading the News, where somebody said, basically, you've been talking around the same point that I'm making in the article, that the Yankees don't have any players from the farm system. And one commenter was saying, well, of course, they never draft high enough. And so I just started looking at the leaders in WAR in the American League this year, and maybe all of baseball, I forget. But just looking at the list, I went to Baseball Reference, who's leading the league in WAR, or who's leading baseball in WAR. And of course, there's a couple guys who are early round draft picks, but there's a ton of guys who are later round draft picks. And I'm doing an article that says, like, the fact that the Yankees don't pick high in the draft is not the reason the Yankees can't develop young talent. And then I look at the current active leaders in WAR, and there's guys who were not first or second round draft picks. People talked about Gunnar Henderson. The Yankees didn't just pass on him once. They passed on him twice. They took Volpe, and then they took TJ Sikima or whatever before Gunnar Henderson was off the board. So the fact that they didn't get Gunnar Henderson is their own fault. It's not anybody else's fault because he was still out there.
I mean, baseball has the least predictive draft in sports.
Correct.
So I know probably the number 1 overall NFL draft pick is going to be a star in the NFL the next year. That's very common.
Most often.
Often. The number 1 NBA pick, teams will tank for that player, in part because these guys are coming out of college rather than out of high school often. The Yankee, in baseball, you draft a number 1 overall guy, you send him to high A, right? Like it's a different game. And so there's no reason why the Yankees can't be consistent. And there's lots of teams that win a lot, like the Dodgers, who bring young guys up. There's a level of player that you may not be able to get, right? You can't draft Alex Rodriguez and bring him up when he's 19. That's just that kind of player may not be available to you.
I mean, Mookie Betts, I'm just looking at right now, 5th round.
Yeah. And, forget Mookie Betts. Just think about Anthony Santander, right? Think about, think of just lots of guys who are above average, good major league players. They can play a position, they can hit, they contribute, and they're never going to win an MVP. That's who the Yankees are lacking. They can buy the stars,
MVP. Yep.
Right. That's their advantage. But the problem is that they can't buy the stars if they have to fill out their roster with $20 million players. And that's what they're ending up with. They bought Garrett Cole. That turned out really well. But then they try to get a bargain on guys like Jay Happ, on guys like Garrett Cole. On guys like Carlos Rodon. And that doesn't work out. And then they have to work a miracle with Nestor Cortez. That worked out for a while. Now he's 30. And it's not working out anymore. They had to get a bargain on Marcus Stroman rather than signing someone who'd be more expensive. They didn't have the prospects, or rather they didn't want to trade for Corbin Burns, who, if they had a really good prospect or were comfortable getting rid of them, they could have maybe gotten Corbin Burns instead of, whatever. So you need to, it's a unrecoverable sin. And top of the morning to you, Mario. Go Australia, mate. So that's an off-season complaint at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the Yankees are half a game out of first place, a game out of what happened to the Orioles today.
I looked before we started. They were winning or they were down 2-1, but it was a 2-1 ball game, and it was in the second inning. It was just starting.
They're currently down 5-3 against the Orioles.
There we go.
So
If they lose, the Yankees will be in first place.
They will be tied in first place with the Orioles.
Unbelievable.
And as bad as it's been for the Yankees, here's the difference. The Orioles have lost guys for the season.
Mm-hmm.
They've also had guys just going to really promising guys like Adley Rutschman kind of going to slumps. Austin Wells is more valuable by WAR right now than Adley Rutschman. That's incredible. And it tells you that it's not just the Yankees. Like a lot of guys have regressed pretty hard. Gunnar Henderson is not as hot as he was previously. Aaron Judge is hot again, right? Like I think the Yankees are matching up pretty well against the Orioles, and I stand by my preseason predictions, which, by the way, I think are turning out pretty well right now. One of my big ones was the Rays are going to trade everybody. I think the Orioles are just a less talented roster. And that was before they lost 2 of their starting pitchers to Tommy John.
You did say that over the winter.
And so, they're even now in record. Henderson was better than anybody ever predicted. He was incredible. He has been incredible. He's a star. But the rest of the roster is just not that talented. I don't think Anthony Santander is going to hit a 50 home run pace or whatever he's on for the rest of the season. I think Aaron Judge will. Aaron Judge, right? Aaron Judge is slugging 700 since April 20th, right? I think that's going to continue. And so the Yankees have more slack to pull on. They have weaknesses. If they address their weaknesses at the trade deadline, this could be the best roster in the American League by a lot. And that's where they were at the end of May. And I think they could get back there. I don't think they can get back there if they don't address their weaknesses. That might mean Jazz Chisholm's a third baseman. That addresses a weakness. We'll see how good he is there. But I think it means adding another player and adding a starting pitcher and adding some bullpen guys. So that's a lot to do. But if they do that, they're in pretty good shape.
I think so too. EJ, we're going to wrap it up. What would we do without Angelo? Angelo, you can see from the background, I'm not home. I am on grandpa duty. We're going to be doing this for a number of weeks. This is more fun being on grandpa duty than anything with the Yankees. So, yeah, I haven't followed baseball at all today, except seeing the deadline trades. But I did not know that the Orioles and the Blue Jays were playing a doubleheader. I just looked up the score real quick. So, and the trade deadline I thought was 5. You picked up the Frankie Montas trade. Angelo is our breaking correspondent. We should consider paying him part of our salary, EJ. But I think he'd be upset to know that we don't get a salary. So we could split the proceeds from this 3 ways.
I have breaking news. Jazz Chisholm used Aaron Judge's bat to hit a second home run.
Is that true?
Yes. I love it.
All right, so we can let Angelo use our pen or something like that sometime, because that's basically all that we have. Everybody, thank you for watching the Start Spreading the News Yankee podcast. I just want to remind everybody that we are brought to you by Artemisia Publishing. You can find their wonderful books at apbooks.net. They publish tons of great high-quality work. A lot of their books are award-winning books, including my wonderful novel, Scattering the Ashes, my books about the Yankees from Compton to the Bronx with Roy White, and The Least Among Them. Stay tuned for lots more great books that they have. Thank you for watching, everybody. Let's hope the Yankees get very busy over the next 20 hours or so. Have yourselves a wonderful Monday night. Take care.